Hello, my name is Dan Mennill, and I'm going to tell you a story about our research on a species of color-changing frog in Costa Rica. Like many good research stories, it involves a fortuitous discovery, challenging field studies, teamwork, and robots. When we think of color-changing animals, we often think of chameleons or octopuses, but not frogs. So you can imagine our surprise when we observed a species of frog in Costa Rica changing from a dull mud brown color to a vibrant lemon yellow. The story of these color-changing frogs takes place in northwestern Costa Rica in the tropical dry forests of the Guanacaste Conservation Area. My research partner, Dr. Stephanie Doucette, and I have been working in the tropical dry forests of Costa Rica for almost 2 decades. Annually, we take classes of undergraduate students on field expeditions and graduate students to conduct long-term studies of the animals of the tropical dry forest. My research focuses on vocal communication in birds, especially wrens. Stephanie's research focuses on visual communication in birds, especially flycatchers, as well as manakins. The tropical dry forests where we work are extraordinary forests. They're one of the most imperiled ecosystems on Earth. They're reduced to about 3% of their original distribution. They're so easily cleared for pasture land. Understanding the ecology of this ecosystem is a key motivator for our research. A year in the tropical dry forest is divided into 2 seasons. The dry season lasts from December until May, and at this time of year hardly a drop of rain falls, and most of the trees drop their leaves as a survival strategy. Then, usually in the month of May, the skies open up, and it begins to rain, and the area experiences a heavy rainy season with 2 meters of rainfall annually, falling in just that one 6-month period. It's at this time of year that the forest becomes a lush tropical forest. In 2007, our research team was working in the Guanacaste Conservation Area when the first rains of the year began to fall. At dawn, Stephanie and I walked through the forest to head to our bird research site, and we passed by a pond that was slowly filling with water with the first rains of the year. To our surprise, this pond was filled with bright lemon yellow toads. They were calling, they were hopping around, they were wrestling with each other, they were mating at the periphery of the pond, and we stopped to take pictures and videos of these hundreds of bright yellow toads. And then we went about our day of research. At the end of the day, we returned to the pond to take more photos of the bright yellow toads, but they were gone. Instead, the pond was filled with brown toads, all of them in this mating position, the male on top of the female, and the female laying a string of eggs that you can see behind her here. What was going on? Did these toads change color over the course of the day? We went back the next day to see if we could watch this pattern in repeat. But when we got there the next day, there were no toads to be seen, only a pond full of eggs. We never saw those toads again. Until the next year, when we were ready for them. Stephanie's research involves a special tool called a reflectance spectrometer. This is our doctoral student, Katrina Gardner, and you can see under her right arm a reflectance spectrometer. This is a tool that can very precisely measure the color of animals. And so we captured toads the next year and measured them with the reflectance spectrometer. I would go to the edge of the pond, catch a yellow toad, and bring it to Stephanie. Often, if we waited too long between catching it and measuring, the toads started to turn from yellow back to brown. We measured lots of yellow toads. We then held them in a box for 1 hour and measured them again. Every one of those toads turned from yellow to brown in less than an hour. We then released them back to the edge of the pond. You can see here a photo of a bright yellow male, and in the other photo, a dull brown male on top of a female after the mating event has occurred. In other words, these are color-changing toads. They are a species called Encilius luetkenii, or the neotropical yellow toad. And like a chameleon or an octopus, neotropical yellow toads are capable of transforming from a very bright color to a dull camouflage color over very short time periods. Stephanie and I published a paper describing our findings, and we showed that there are sex differences in color where males only are this bright yellow color, and how it is only for one day of the year, on the one day of year following the first rains, when males turn yellow, mate with females, and then turn brown again until the next year's rains arrive. Over the last decade, Stephanie and I have worked with an amazing team of University of Windsor students to gain a deeper understanding of these color-changing toads. I'd like to single out 4 graduate students who've been particularly important in this research: Nick Rayberg-Biesler, Lincoln Savvy, Katrina Gardner, and Nicole Shangy. They have played an important role in our ongoing yellow toad studies, along with an incredible group of UWindsor students who have acted as our field assistants on the day that the toads emerge. Now, the work of this team is really challenging. We have to collect all of the data for the entire year on one day, but we don't know what that day is. We have to just wait for the rains to start falling. So we get there in mid-April and wait for it to start to rain to collect our data. In the second part of my talk, I'd like to talk about 3 recent experiments that we have done to gain a deeper understanding of the color changes in these toads. In the first experiment, Stephanie and I created clay models of brown and yellow toads, and we set the brown and yellow clay models out in the stream bed where the toads breed right at the end of the dry season. Our goal was to try and understand whether the yellow color is costly. Are predators more likely to attack the yellow toads? By looking at the markings left in these non-toxic clay models, we gained an understanding of what kinds of predators attack this species of yellow toad. Because the clay is soft, we're able to see impressions left by the teeth, or the claws, or the beaks, and we found many different types of predators attacking the clay models. Excitingly, we found that the yellow models were far more likely to be attacked by predators than the brown models were, in spite of setting out the exact same number of yellow and brown clay models. In other words, it's not easy being yellow. Yellow animals are more likely to be eaten, and this surely plays a role in the evolution of this interesting color signal. It is beneficial to be bright yellow as briefly as possible, because that yellow is a target for predators. In our second experiment, led by Nick, we used models to study how male toads react to yellow versus brown toads. Nick created more lifelike models of brown and yellow toads using modeling clay. Nick found that when he presented these yellow and brown models, you can see the top 2 here, to live toads, they didn't much care for them. But if he attached it to a string and simulated a little bit of bouncing, they got excited about it. And so his experimental design consisted of a yellow model and a brown model attached to strings and a stick, and he would present them in pairs to toads at the edge of a breeding pond in order to understand how do males react to yellow versus brown models. We found that male yellow toads largely ignored the yellow model, but they often approached the brown model, approaching it, jumping on it, attempting to enter the mating posture with those brown models. This taught us that within the busy mating aggregation of a group of yellow toads, color can be an important signal of what sex a toad is. From a male's perspective, a toad that is bright yellow is a rival male, an animal to avoid. A toad that is brown is a female and a potential mating opportunity. In our third experiment, and the final experiment I'll outline today, we created our most amazing research tools yet, robo-toads. This project was led by Katie and involved the amazing art and science skills of Lincoln. Lincoln created 3D printed toads that you can see across the top here. And he created them together. He and Katie chose paint colors that closely matched our brightest yellow males and our dullest yellow males. You can see in the bottom left an example of a bright yellow male on top of a female and a dull yellow male next to him. And you can see that Lincoln's 3D printed toads are very, very lifelike. To add even more life to them, we made them into robots by attaching them to servo motors, which we programmed to rotate slightly, which created a very lifelike appearance, similar to the kinds of movements that toads engage in at the edge of the pond. We then presented a bright robotoad and a dull robotoad to a female in a triangular arena. Our question was, do females prefer males with the brightest yellow color? Here you can see some videos of females reacting to the bright and dull robotoads. You can see females hopping around within this triangular apparatus, often approaching the robotoads, hopping near them, in some cases even backing up into the robotoads as if to enter a mating event with one of the robotoads. We found that females reacted strongly, and they reacted strongly to both the bright and the male models. In fact, that we didn't find any evidence that females prefer brighter yellow males versus duller yellow males, and this taught us that the intensity of male yellow color doesn't appear to be a signal that is driven by female preference. Our current research, our ongoing research on yellow toads involves new questions and more advanced robotoads as we ask questions about these toads, their color, their vocalizations, and the parasites that live within these toads. Before I finish, I'd like to say that the 3D printed robotoads are so amazing that Lincoln started his own business after he graduated from the University of Windsor. His business is called Savvy Made, and he prints and paints animal models for scientists. You could check out his website or his Twitter feed or Facebook site or Instagram feed. His clients are as diverse as the Toronto Zoo, every animal behavior researcher at the University of Windsor, and researchers across the globe. He even makes models as commissions for gifts for people. I'd also like to acknowledge the students in Stephanie's lab and my lab and our collaborators who've helped make this research possible, and NSERC of Canada and University of Windsor for supporting our research. I'll finish my talk with a summary. By being in the right place at the right time, working within one of Earth's most imperiled ecosystems in northwestern Costa Rica, we have made discoveries about animal ecology and animal behavior. We've found that these toads exhibit dynamic color change, that males produce a colorful signal that is important in communicating sex to other males, but does not appear to be especially important in female choice. It is through this curiosity-driven research, including robotoads, that we've come to understand more about the color-changing frogs of Costa Rica. Thank you.